if you've been following along with the journey of some of these reform councillors, don't worry. There is a very clear pattern forming, so don't worry if you've missed any. In fact, I'm probably going to end up putting all these in a big playlist, to be honest, because it seems to be definitely going that way, quite frankly. Um, but there is a clear pattern forming already. First of all, these people are just absolutely incompetent. They have no clue about the jobs that they took on, what to do, or even what their role actually entails. We're also seeing reform people not even turn up. Like when the finances are on a general council meeting for a cabinet meeting, and the finance officer, who is a reform cabinet member, does not turn up. You know, we are seeing some of this, and we're going to go back to Leicestershire. Because last time, of course, we talked about Leicestershire. They had a special emergency meeting that lasted 6 minutes to implement a new flag policy. And now the Scrutiny Committee is now going to be asking these, the leader of the council, along with his deputy, possibly another case of where a 19-year-old could end up in charge of the council if this guy quits. Again, that's not worrying at all, is it? But it is very, very clear. Not only are they all just incompetent, have zero clue, but they are now also refusing to answer questions. Like outright just refusing to answer questions. Or basically saying, yeah, I don't know. They're 2 months into the job. I'd expect them to have better answers than I don't know. And remember, this is a group that ran on the idea that they are somehow better than all the other parties and that they have all these fantastic ideas which they haven't told anyone about yet that are supposedly coming. But again, that's because the unit down in London still hasn't come up with any ideas or at least is still trying to cook them up for what to do for these councils. Again, look out for that when that starts to roll out. That's for sure. But we've now had a scrutiny committee meeting about this new flag policy that the Reform administration in Leicestershire has now brought in. Guess what? They've got no answers and dodge questions constantly during this. So again, to no one's surprise, again, another pattern forming in Reform UK's, quite frankly, terrible track record for running councils. And if this is how they're going to act at a local level, do you guys seriously think this is going to be better or acceptable at a national level? Because I'm sorry, I know I see the comments from a couple of people trying to like defend some of this stuff, and it's pathetic the way you guys are trying to defend some of this stuff. And I've said I'm from Yorkshire. I'm all about having talks and conversations. I'm open to having a conversation with anyone, but no takers because, quite frankly, who is going to want to defend the sheer amount of incompetence we are covering? So let's crack on then into this, shall we? But before we do that, please remember to click on the like, the share button, and of course, down below, there's the Patreon page, there's the Buy Me Coffee link, there's the YouTube thank you button, there's the YouTube membership button as well down below too. So thank you very much to everyone who does help and support the channel that way. And on with this, because, oh boy. Leicestershire now Reform ordered to rethink their unclear, controversial flag rules. So Reform UK has now been told to go back and rethink a controversial policy over which flags can fly outside Leicestershire's County Hall. The new, fresh set of rules set up by the newly elected cabinet earlier this month has now prompted significant backlash from staff within Leicester County Council, who fear that their changes now promote exclusion and marginalisation. The key concerns, of course, revolve around the community flags, such as the Pride flag, the Disability People's flag, which under previous rules were now flown in the inner quadrangle of the authority's Grenfell Glenfield headquarters for events and celebration days. These new rules mean that they will now not automatically be raised. Instead, a decision on whether to fly a flag will have to be now made by the chief executive following consultation with the leader of the council, the party leaders Dan Harrison, leading some now to the fear that they will now not be flown going forward. Again, why would you need this policy? None of this policy that they're bringing in makes any sense. But no, it's culture war nonsense. And instead, it doesn't make things better. It makes things worse. As you will see, you've got people who work in the council going, these changes are promoting exclusion and marginalization. That is not a good outcome. This is why, once again, this culture war stuff does never had any single good outcomes. Anyway, this new policy now was called in by the four other party leaders representing the council, the Conservatives, the Lib Dems, Labour and the Green Party, and for further scrutiny. Members now of the Authorities Scrutiny Committee have now told Reform UK to now go look again at the policy and to actually clarify what flags will be flown at the county hall. Councillor Harrison had been told that told the Commission that the change in policy was intended now to simplify the rules around flags and reduce confusion. How does this again? How does this rule and what they've done simplify these rules or reduce confusion? But the leader of the opposition, Deborah Taylor, said these now rules were very much too much of a grey area, as they now stood the changes were needed to make them really, really clear. Members also said that the ability now of the leader and the chief executive to actually decide on flying of the individual flag on an ad hoc basis should not be allowed in relation to community events, and only being the case of exceptional circumstances, which arise as a result of the national and global situation. Again, we've seen, of course, again with the Ukrainian flag, you've seen a lot of councils fly it because of that. Again, when things have happened nationally, you've seen, of course, the certain flags be flied. Part of this is basically they want to exclude certain flags, and they are trying to do it in such a way as, well, let's put it quite frankly, they don't get sued. Because if they were to say, yeah, we're going to stop the LGBT pride flag, if we're going to basically stop the pride flag from being flown, then you might, have lawyers knocking on your door very quickly. And of course, they don't want that to happen. So they're trying to implement a sneaky way around it by not saying exactly which flags indeed are going to be flying, which is why they've all the other parties have come forward and said, okay, which flags specifically are you not going to fly? Be really clear about it, be really detailed about it, because they know exactly which ones they don't want to fly. So Councillor Taylor then also added that she hoped that Councillor Harrison would, of course, speak now to the staffing group who had raised the concerns about the policy before the next cabinet meeting. The cabinet is, of course, made up of the leader of the council and 9 lead members for the council's various other service areas. Previously, the Union flag, the county flag, and either the Commonwealth flag or the anniversary of the invasion of Ukraine, the Ukrainian flag occupied 3 of the poles in front of the building, with the Lord Lieutenant's flag flown when they were present. The new policy, of course, states the Union flag and the county standard are to be flown on the 2 of the 3 flagpoles in the county hall, and either St. George's or the Lord Lieutenant flags displayed now on the 3rd. And again, very, very clear about this. Oh yeah, these are the flags that we're going to fly. But, if you want to fly another flag, well, then you just have to come and ask me. Gee, I wonder which flags he's going to say no to. The then, of course, lead member for adult social care on the Reform Council. Again, he's 22 years old. I doubt he has any experience in this. Reform's now Joseph Brom told the meeting, I think the removal of these flags does not mean exclusion. The Union flag is the most inclusive flag you can get. Then what's the problem flying other flags then? But he continued. He said, "We are inclusive, which is why we will fly the Union flag, which represents everyone in this county and country, regardless of sexuality, gender, or race." So again, he's giving the game away slightly there. Like I said, they want to be trying sneaky about this. I have a feeling this is being put to them, and they are the test case for this flag policy that all the other councils, if they get away with this, all those other reform-led councils are going to bring this in as well. I have a funny feeling that is what they are trying to do here. Further, of course, concerns were then raised by the Scrutiny Commission over the members of the way that the decision now to change the former flag policy has been made. Reform UK voted on these changes to the existing flag policy now at a special meeting of the council's cabinet. The meeting was held just last week before an already scheduled cabinet meeting that lasted less than 7 minutes. The new flag policy was the sole item on the agenda and was the first cabinet's official meeting. The council's Liberal Democrat leader, Michael McKelney, asked Councillor Harrison whether he actually truly believed that flags were, quote, the one issue that was so important that it actually justified a special cabinet meeting when there were other issues such as social care, special needs education, and of course public transport and flooding, which affect people's everyday lives. Again, it is just purely incompetent to have a special council meeting that lasts, like I say, 6 minutes, less than 7, to discuss that, when there are far, far more important things that should be discussed at special cabinet meetings, right? Anyway, Councillor Harrison said that the, quote, new flags policy was something which could be, quote, dealt with appropriately and quickly rather than requiring weeks or days or months of negotiating or planning, he said. The cabinet was, quote, not neglecting those other issues. It sounds to me like you could have easily done it at your first proper cabinet meeting rather than having to call a special meeting. But again, I think this is a test case. I think this is reform trying to do a test case on this. They're trying to put forward this policy, and they're trying to see if they can get away with it. I think that is what is going on. I think they are desperately trying to look for a way to do this type of policy and basically not get sued. That seems to me what they're trying to do. He then was further pressed on the matter by Conservative councillor Phil King, who asked why, if there was no pressing need, that required, of course, an immediate decision to actually be made. The leader had not even met with the staffing groups before scheduling the cabinet meeting to rule on the flag policy. Councillor Harrison had said in response that the decision was made lawfully and legally. Interesting choice of words, that, isn't it? Which again, all leads me to believe this is being done on purpose. They are the test case for trying to roll out this policy to those other councils. This is what they are trying to do. But it continued. And of course, it said, and of course, the other cabinet members did not feel that they, quote, had to go out sampling views and opinions. Wow. Good way to treat your voters and, people that, work for you. He added that he was, quote, utterly shocked and worried about some of the concerns raised by staff, and that he, quote, welcomed the opportunity to talk to them to try and understand how he can, quote, try to offer support and help. Basically, all the staff have just gone, well, we're really worried now that this type of policy could lead to, further, discrimination and exclusion. Because it really does seem this is what they're trying to push for. And I think him saying that, Councillor Harrison giving the game away, saying, oh yes, this decision was made lawfully and legally, giving the game away. This is a test case by Reform UK, trying to see if they can get away with it. And if they can get away with it, they'll implement it in the other councils. And then, of course, they'll try and push this even further, see how far they can go before the lawyers come knocking. Make no mistake, these people are incredibly regressive. Incredibly regressive. And they want to roll back a lot of stuff. And I think this is a test case for trying to do that. So, while, of course, Scrutiny can request a policy be returned to the Cabinet now for further consideration, it cannot, of course, insist that the decision is now changed or revoked. The newly elected Green councillor, Naomi Bottomley, told the Leicestershire Live after the meeting, "I am now deeply concerned about the Reform leader, Mr. Harrison's inability to answer a question directly in the Scrutiny meeting. Scrutiny now is a cornerstone of democracy, and it should be expected when holding an elected position as we do. At times, he had to be reminded what the new policy was, and that he and his cabinet actually proposed and voted it through." That's even worse. That's even worse. This again leads me to believe this is just a test case. They are trying to roll back this type of stuff because, again, it makes them look good to a very small section of their fans. Oh, look, we've got the Union Jack permanently flying from the council building, as if these people actually cared about what flag flew from their council building. Anyway, continued. The people of Leicestershire, of course, deserve a council run by an administration who, of course, will welcome scrutiny and can actually answer questions directly and actually can remember what their policies actually say. I mean, expect more of that in the future when these, policies finally come out. I don't think they're going to know what those policies are. I think they're going to be told, this is the policy you're now implementing, go and implement it. Again, wait for that to come because that's going to be really fun when we get that. Not only that, but next year when we start to see budgets trying to be set, that's going to be fun when they try to set those budgets. Oh boy. Anyway, the Cabinet, of course, is set to meet next week to try and revise the policy and to, of course, consider whether it actually wants to make any changes to it. So we'll keep an eye on this, but I guarantee you now, this is a test case. This is a test case. I think this is being done on purpose by Reform to try and see what language they can use. And so we say what stuff they can do to make sure that they can get away with doing some of these stuff to try and roll back a lot of progress that we've been making for a number of years. I think this is a test case. I think this is their experiment. I really think it is. So we'll keep an eye on this. But anyway, as always, let me know what you think about this. Do you think I'm right about this? Do you think this is some sort of, test by Reform UK to see how far they can go before the lawyers, come calling on the door of Leicestershire Council? It seems to be that way, but again, I'd love to know what you guys think. So, as always, click the like, click the share button, and of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.